Hey there, students, graduating seniors. I'm Bob Boylan. You might know me from Tiny Desk Concerts, my desk at NPR in Washington. Today I'm at my desk at home, as many of us are, and I make music in my house, and I also record my podcast in my home right here. And it's hard for me to imagine ever being one to give advice of any sort. When I think of myself as a 20-something-year-old, I was a person who went to college for 5.5 years and never graduated. I couldn't find what I loved in college all through college. I did work 48 hours a week in record stores, and that was my passion, but I didn't think that was something that you go and make money in, that is music. I didn't think that having a passion is how you found a way in your life to make a living. That wasn't how I was brought up. But about the age of 27, being frustrated and not doing what I loved, I chucked it all and bought a synthesizer and joined a band called Tiny Desk Unit. It was an awfully long time ago. And still, in fact, a text message just came on my screen from that very guitarist, Michael Barron, from Tiny Desk Unit. We still make music together, and we're working on yet another album, this one for the month of April. There's something called the RPM Challenge, and in a given month, we make an album from the first of the month to the end of the month. And it's taught me something, a lesson that has come up quite a number of times in my life. Well, first, to pursue what you love, which may be your generation, my son's generation, your generation, may be more obvious than it was for my generation, but do that because that's key. But the other part of all of that is take chances, which is really, really an important thing to do and to understand when to do it. When you're younger and don't have a family and other larger obligations, taking chances is easier. So do those chances now. Don't be discouraged when it comes to your dreams. It's really, really important to pursue those things that you love, and be a good listener. One thing to be headstrong and have a dream. It's also good to hear the wisdom of others. It doesn't mean you have to take all their advice, but sometimes they'll have an insight into you that you might not have. I went up at NPR, not a day in journalism, not a day in radio. I went to my favorite show that had done a story on my music years ago, and that show was All Things Considered. I told them I wanted to work there. It's a longer story than I can tell here, but be that as it may, I wound up being, I got a job from week to week, sort of, cutting tape back in those days at All Things Considered. And I had an opportunity. Someone said to me, because someone was leaving, Bob, you ought to direct that show. And I said, that I can't do that. But they saw in me my love for music, which was important to directing a music show, important to directing a new show, that the knowledge of music was important in the pacing of the show and so forth. And so someone else saw in me something that I didn't know I had. Listening for that is important. And I took that job on, and I wound up directing All Things Considered for 18, 19 years, something I madly wound up loving to do. But I want to speak also to these times because we're living right now in a time where it feels like there's strict limitations on what you can do. Certainly, those are truths, but it doesn't mean they're roadblocks. The one thing I've learned, and this goes back to making that record in a month, it goes back to bringing bands to my desk, doing Tiny Desk Concerts, that when you limit a creative person, it is a spark to different solutions. And so when I tell a group, hey, I'm not going to amplify the voice of your lead singer, those guitarists go, and yet they wind up playing and listening to one another more carefully and making something they never would have made before. And that's the beauty of it. And that's the beauty of limitations. Creative people come up with solutions when you are limited. The idea that all possible things are best to have so you can pick the ones you like, that, for at least in me, in my life, hasn't been true. Having limits placed upon us gives rise to the creative spirit. And I want you to think about that as you go forward. I've been to your school and done shows and concerts and talks, and I know what Josh has put together there and how he inspires creativity. Don't lose sight of that. Be well. Have great lives. If you make music, send it to me. And trust in yourself. Take care. Thanks.